Modern football is full of masterminds. The genius tactician who has studied the game meticulously, designs complex systems, and charts the course for success. Under their command are the human players, each with a personal history, culture, psychology. The human is unstable, unpredictable, but in their imperfection, capable of magic.
Ronaldinho. Oh, it's a terrific goal! Wonderful, wonderful goal!
If the coach represents order and science, the player is chaos, artistry. At least, so the story goes. But what if the fine balance between coach and player, science and artistry became disrupted? What if the coaches, in their pursuit of control, stripped away the most important element of the game, the player's propensity for magic? Today, we're exploring how that possibility became an unfortunate reality, how creativity made way for conformity, and how football was taken from the players. From Ronaldinho to robots, this is the story of how football killed creativity, and what, if anything, we can do about it.
You tell a player all the time when they do these squares in training, oh, this is your zone, this is where you have to move. Football is not like that.
Football is always evolving, whether it's advancements in fitness, the use of analytics, or coaching methods. But in recent times, one of the biggest shifts in the game has been tactical. In a relatively short period, teams all around the world have converged on a shared but powerful idea, a philosophy known as positional play. In my last video, we explored the fundamentals of this approach and how it was popularized by Pep Guardiola. I suggest watching that video first to get the full picture. Unfortunately, this evolution in tactics is inextricably linked to a gradual but noticeable loss of creativity in football, although it's not immediately obvious how, because at first glance it seems modern tactics do much more to help players than to hinder them. For example, in possession. Mikel Arteta, discussing his team structure, expressed that it's much more simple for a player if you can process where your teammates will be before receiving the ball. If I'm in the kitchen and I know my glasses are always in this cupboard, I get my glass of water more quickly. In other words, the rehearsed structures of positional play provide its players with comfort and familiarity. If you know where your teammates will be, you feel more comfortable when put under pressure. But on top of possession, positional structures have also improved progression. As we saw last time, positional play can generate real tactical advantage that help a team progress through the opposition. We saw how Mancini's Italy created a numerical advantage just by changing their structure from a square to a diamond. In this way, the positional coach can have a lot of influence. By studying the opposition, they can design the right structures and patterns to progress more easily. And in theory, better progression means more opportunities for the players. A midfielder more consistently receives passes between the lines. A winger gets more frequent 1v1s against the fullback.
That's right, give it to Savio, that's what we want to see.
From that perspective, the system gives its players more chance to express themselves, not less.
The tactics is just put it on the field to help them to express the talent quite often, more often than normal.
But the final and most powerful aspect of positional play is its impact on defending. A positional structure isn't just designed for possession. By specifying exactly where to stand when the ball is ahead of you, the coach can ensure there is a safety net when it's lost, a concept known as rest defense. For forwards, this provides a kind of security. Once your team is settled, you can try something creative without the fear of costing your team. So undeniably, positional play has given teams and players many tools to perform, whether it's improving possession, generating advantages, or being secure when you lose it. But in life, when something is given, so something must be taken away. And while it's easy to see how the system benefits players, it's more interesting to analyse what they've had to give up in return. And when you do that, something concerning starts to appear.
Everybody was changing position, was not in, and that is something that I will not see again. We can lose, but we have to maintain position.
Each benefit of positional play comes with a creative cost. For example, comfort in possession is provided by a positional structure, but that's only possible if you stay disciplined to that structure. Players in this system are heavily limited positionally, and anyone who's played this way would happily admit that.
And the most important one, as you can see, was position. You have to stay in your position, trust your teammates in order for that ball to come to you.
Progression, or generating advantages, also comes with a creative cost. If the system is designed to exploit the opponent in a certain way, you must adhere to that plan. For example, we often see specific patterns of play embedded into positional structures. Triangles may set up third-man combinations, or rotations may create space between the lines. But if it's the system that gives you the tools to progress, you're in a way confined by the limitations of that system. You're less likely to find, or even look for, different ways of playing. So now you're not just being told where to stand, you have a predefined idea of where to move and the correct way of progressing the ball. But perhaps the biggest constraint of all is tied to defending. You may have heard that while Guardiola is meticulous in build-up, he allows more freedom further forward. The reason for that is defensive. If you try something spontaneous before the team is settled in its shape, you risk creating a problem you can't solve. But if you limit creative moments until after the team is settled, after you've created an advantage, then you can account for its failure. Your rest defense is there to win the ball back. Follow this logic though, and you realize just how much of a limit it's putting on creativity. Because broadly speaking, it's really only acceptable in two scenarios. Either A, your team unlocks an advantage and the player has license to be creative, to make the difference, or B, the system fails to provide you with an option, and you have to do something special to make up for that. That's all good if the team is creating a lot of advantages, you'll see a lot of creative license. But if not, that license is really diminished. You're stuck following the system's patterns until something eventually opens up. Zoom out then, and we see that players are constrained probably more than ever before. They are limited positionally, they're expected to follow prescribed patterns, and their creativity is limited to specific moments and phases. But as we've seen, all of these constraints are easily justified. They make the average player more comfortable, they create tactical advantages, and they reduce defensive risk. In the modern world, any purist sentiments don't really hold weight if the system is producing results. That's why many see the restriction of creativity as inevitable and even necessary for the progress of football. And that perspective is unsurprising. After all, restraining individual freedom in the name of progress is far from new. Anonymous writer Josef Boschik draws parallels between Guardiola's systemization and the rule of government. Both impose rules or laws that limit individual freedom, but they're justified by protecting their people from chaos. There is a similar justification in capitalist business, where employees are strictly ordered and their liberty compromised for the sake of maximizing efficiency. In this cultural context, no one person can be blamed for the limitation of player creativity. The mastermind coach is the inevitable conclusion to a story driven by efficiency. 30 years ago, men went out with the fullest license to display their arts and crafts. Today, they have to make their contribution to a system. Individuality has had to be subordinated to teamwork. So declared Arsenal coach Herbert Chapman all the way back in 1934. So while systems have evolved and perhaps modern data is accelerating that evolution, these concerns have practically always existed. And who knows how much more mechanical the systems and players will become. But does it have to be that way? Must we sit back and accept the loss of creativity, all in the name of efficiency? Well, it depends on who you ask.
We're just making players so robotic, just looking at one way when there is so many other things happening in the game, you know?
Positional play has arguably created the most efficient and consistent football we've ever seen, but it isn't perfect, and over time teams have learned how to fight it. Traditionally, the positional attack is most effective against zonal defences, because you can put players between opposition lines and generate positional advantages. But what happens when those lines don't exist? Today, defensive systems have become more and more man-oriented. where defenders are concerned less with controlling central space and more about pressuring the receiving player, often going completely man-to-man in certain phases. Where defenders used to be tied to their back line, they're now comfortable stepping out great distances to prevent the positional team creating an advantage. Antonio Gagliardi, former assistant to Roberto Mancini, wrote that, "Over time, I realised the advantages we had in the months in the previous years were less and less, because the teams were changing the way to defend." So the question becomes, what do we do next? What is the next advancement that solves these problems? For some, the answer is an evolution of positional play, where the coaches must design even more complex systems. According to journalist Guillaume Balaguer, there are coaches working on developing the organised attack, where as they try to break down the opponent, they'll have not 5 ways of doing it, but 20.
Organized attack means that when you take the decision, you should know what you're doing, when you're doing it, with your eyes closed. Creating robots like he has been in other parts of the pitch, but for the last decision, for the shoot.
One of the coaches Balaguer cites is Roberto De Zerbi, who is undeniably a positional play innovator, known particularly for his build-up patterns. De Zerbi's designs are incredibly precise and aim to give his players a whole suite of solutions. And when it works, these build-ups appear outrageously fluid and efficient. But De Zerbi teams sometimes run into major issues, and to understand why, we have to dig deeper into what creativity really is. According to coach and researcher James Vaughan, creativity in football is heavily linked to the opportunities the player can perceive. A player who only sees one pass has less creative potential than a player who sees that pass, another 2 passes, and the opportunity to dribble simultaneously. Of course, these opportunities shift as the game evolves. Spaces open up and close down, a defender's weight shifts from one side to the other. So creativity manifests as the player reads this shifting information and has the skill to exploit the opportunity it presents. These are the moments that get us off our seats. But if a system is designed to give you a set of solutions, where exactly is your attention going as a player? Is it to the real, critical information around you necessary to be creative? Or are you fixating on the options the game model presents? Vaughan wrote that when coaches instruct players to pass wide or switch the play as part of a performance or game model, they coerce behavioural outcomes rather than educate attention. So while a De Zerbi system aims to give the players many options, those options still exist within the confines of De Zerbi's understanding of football, the solutions he has imagined that the players must internalise and reproduce.
If the pressure starts from the number 8, we finish at number 8.
Research suggests that the more players engage with these game models, the less they develop their creative potential, because the model encourages conformity towards an idealized way of playing, rather than developing skilled perception that leads to creativity. So it's not about what the players are being told to look for, it's about the things they can no longer see. But is there any alternative to De Zerbi's method or Balaguer's organised attack? If we've already seen how deeply rooted these systems are, what exactly can we do differently? Well, perhaps there is one unlikely way out.
Now it's too easy. Oh no, but it's the coach's fault because he told me to do this and I did exactly what he told me. Yes, but the game brought you into another way, into another path. You need to be smart enough, intelligent enough, courageous enough to understand that and do it and go and do it.
What is really missing from football? What is being suppressed by these intricate systems? Many people would say what is lost is personal expression, individuality, but is that really it? After all, what exactly is personal expression? Is it not, in fact, the culmination of our life experience, the people around us, the environment we grew up in? Personal expression is the least individual thing there is. It's been grown and shaped by hundreds, if not thousands, of influences. What's missing then, perhaps, is not individuality, but authenticity. When we watch football, we want to feel the real, authentic expression of the performers. We want to feel their journey, their lives, and the combined life of the team. Today, what we feel instead are the workings of a machine, a system designed at the top and imposed down onto the players, systems that don't offer empowerment but seek conformity. In the best of cases, those designs are at least authentic to the managers, to their own journey and influences, but is that really what football is about? Watching two masterminds pit their machines against each other? Juan Milio, longtime collaborator of Pep Guardiola, wrote that we, the managers, have too much influence. It's unbearable. We have our own ideas and we say that we espouse them to help people understand the game. Bullshit. It should be for the players to understand the game as they understand it. And if we want to return creativity to football, if we want authentic expression, this is the course we need to chart. Not to educate players in a game model designed by the coach, but to help teams and players develop their own understanding. To break these top-down systems and allow ways of playing to grow from the bottom up.
Breathtakingly brilliant.
In my next video, I'm going to explore exactly how we can achieve this in the real world, taking examples from current teams and learning from the streets to explore how we can give football back to the players, how we can revive creativity and uncover the lost beauty in the beautiful game.